This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so yesterday, just we started understanding about as part of the Salesforce development, what exactly we are going to understand. You can see the syllabus for more details, what exactly we are going to discuss. And we started with the Apex programming basics, how this programming and all those things. So as part of that, yesterday maybe I showed by comparing with one of the natural language English, and we try to understand how we call technically. Yeah, so as part of that, first we should know we write different types of statements when we develop. At present, we are understanding about the different types of statements what we define while developing the program. So one of the first type, memory statement. The purpose of the memory statement is when we deal with a program to hold the data whatever we input, and also whatever the results are there after the calculation, to store the results of the data. Again, system needs memory to store that. So that allocation we do by using memory statement. But it is not that for any type of data we are going to allocate same memory. There are different data types. So at present we are trying to understand about the data types. I have listed these are the data types available in the Apex. Now, how we define and how we technically need to understand. Okay, so the syntax is so what kind of data you are going to store. Okay, we have to mention the data type and name of the memory. How many text values you want to store? Maybe here in this example, we are going to store the first name and last name. You can keep comma and keep on include multiple memory locations for the same type. Yeah, so for different data type, age is the different type. Again, we are defining user and age, and we are assigning some of the value. So Boolean is one of the type, and we are just giving like this. So now, technically, on day to day, what we call this in general in a program, everything is a token, right? Everything, whatever we see, if you don't know what to call, you can say token, right? So, but especially when we write the program, if you see here in the statements, whatever we wrote, string, integer, boolean, all those are the keywords. The keyword meaning is the token which is provided by the system and which we cannot change the meaning. So string, when I say string and define one of the name of our memory, so always it is going to accept only string value. So for this, if I try to give the number like this, it won't take, right? So even if you want to give the number, it should be in a string format like this. Okay. So the tokens which are provided by system and which we change the meaning. So those things we call as keywords in the above statements. String, integer, boolean, those are the keywords. Identifiers means as the developer for our identification purpose. Right? So we need to identify what we define. We give some name. Those things we call as identifier in the above example. First name, last name, is executed. All those are the identifiers. We decided. Who decided? Maybe some other developer might give some other name. It is based on the developer who is developing at that point of time. What is the name they want to give? They give that. Okay. And also the above example, equal to is a operator, right? Which is responsible to assign the right hand side value to the left hand side. Okay. Equal to, plus, minus, all those things we call as operators. So numbers we call as literals. So this is a string value, right? We call as string. So technically we call like that. And also these identifiers, whatever the identifiers I'm saying, we also call identifiers as data members. When you read some technical documents, some of the technical books, see people refer as data members. Also, we call as variables. Okay, most of the times when you say variable, people can easily understand. Okay, identifier we call as variable on day-to-day terminology. Any questions? Someone is not in here. If you don't have any questions, by default, please share. I think Sirisha. Okay. So now, technically, identifier we also call as variable. The name what we give to the memory, whatever we are allocating, on day-to-day, people call as variable. Variable means everyone can understand. Okay. So first name, last name is all these are the variables. Variable is nothing but the name, whatever we give to allocate the memory. Alright, while allocating the memory, we give some name for our identification purpose. So going forward, I will say variable, right? The day-to-day terminology is referring this as a variable. So all these are the variables. So first we should know that. Okay, first we should know this technical terminology. Okay, later slowly we understand the other things. Okay, so now, so let me, so maybe let me execute and show you, right, how it allocates memory and all those things. So whatever the code we write, there are different ways how we can execute our code, right? So one of the way as a developer to test the Apex code quickly using the developer console. Once you log into Salesforce, open the developer console. And here, click on debug and open execute anonymous window. So here we write the Apex statements. It won't expect any program structure and all. So later we bother about how we need to form a program and what is the syntax for that. So for now, so I think these are the statements which I kept, but we are not doing anything, right? So just like that, we define the memory for the variables. And when you execute, right, what will happen when these statements are executed? For all these variables, system allocate the memory. Okay, so you can also see the log and understand. So how many bytes it is generating and all those things. Okay, so maybe here what I want to show. Maybe anyway, I want to print all these values. We are assigning some values, right? First name, last name is we are assigning some value. Is executed. We did not assign any value. So maybe I want to print in the log. Okay, even though you don't print, still you will see the information. Even if you are not able to print also, you can see the information. But it is very difficult. We need to explore the entire log file, whatever is there, and it takes time for that. So as a developer, quickly in the log, whatever system generates, as a developer, if you want to print something and understand what is happening, so we use system.debug. Okay, for now, so what is that system? So what is that debug? Going forward, you'll understand clearly. Okay, for now, just to print, just understand as a syntax, we have to use as system.debug, and whatever you want to print, you can give. Let's say I'm printing first name, right? In the same way, I also want to print all these variable values. Yeah, I'm printing last name. What is the value? I'm printing is. What is the value? I'm printing is executed. What is the value? Okay, so I can check this open log. When you do this automatically, the log will be open. Otherwise, what we need to do here, system generate log, and we need to open manually. Yeah, just I have checked this one and click on execute. Now, when you see here, right, so maybe to understand, first we are printing first name. Right, first name we did not assign anything, right? We are allocating the memory, but we did not assign any value. By default, it is holding null. Right? Null is a keyword. Null means nothing is there. That's the meaning. Okay. So always we cannot change the meaning of this one. Right? This is provided by the system. So which we cannot change the meaning. We call null as a keyword. Okay. And here we are assigning value. Whatever we assign, it is there. The same way here is executed. We did not assign anything. That's why we are seeing as null. Okay. So like that we have to understand. Okay. So maybe let's proceed further. One more thing, follow the indentation. Indentation means program standards. Okay. So what are the standards? So so if you don't follow indentation, what will happen? Nothing will happen. Okay. Even though you don't follow, your program will execute and you will see the results. Nothing will happen. Okay. But why we need to use indentation? If you don't write in a proper way, right? So if I write everything like this, it will work. But what will happen? It won't be in a readable way, right? And so it's very difficult to understand. So all programmers, most of the experienced programmers, they follow some standards. So if you also follow the standards from beginning, it is very good. Okay. So whenever we give the data type, either integer or decimal or whatever the data type, right? If you observe, I'm starting with capital letter and the remaining as small letters, right? So that is the standard we follow when we include the data type. Decimal, boolean, start with capital letter and the remaining small letters, right? And also, so let's say um, when you are defining variable, right? Whatever the name we give to the memory, the variable, we have to follow the camel case. Camel case means we have to start with the small letter and after that each and every word as a capital letter. Okay. So let's say I'm saying total years of experience, right? Total year is a different word, right? Total years of is a one of the different word, right? Experience. Right? Let's say I want to follow the short form. So now this we call as camel case. Starts with small letter, and after that, each and every letter, sorry, every word is a. It should start with the capital letter. So all developers follow these standards. So from beginning, I recommend you to follow these standards. Okay. So that's about that. Understand if you don't follow, nothing will happen. But it is very good to follow. That is about that. And also, few things for sure we have to follow. Right. The names, whatever we give to the variables, right? Valid. Maybe I'll say valid or invalid names for variables. Okay, when you define the variable, for sure we have to follow some rules. Without that, if you try to define a variable, you will see error. Yeah, maybe one of the example, let's say I'm defining one of the variable like this, right? The rule is variable can have a number, right? If you see unexpected token 1, it's not valid. Variable can have a number, but it should not start with a number, right? So this is not valid. So what is valid? So maybe number, when since I'm saying number, I'll say integer. Integer number 1, which is valid. The variables can have number, but it should not start with the number, right? So this is comment. Already I told, right? Slash means this is commented. You can type anything. System won't compile this and won't consider for the syntax. Okay. Now this is valid when you are executing. So you are not seeing any error means. Okay. So that means the syntax is correct. That's it. Okay. So just try to understand this. Maybe here I'll say this is invalid. This is valid. Right? From here, the rest of the line will be commented. That's the meaning of this. If this is one convention. And one more thing, variable should not have space, right? Should not have the space. For example, I'm giving space here, right? Execute, right? So variables should not have the space. That is one rule, right? So this is, you can say, invalid. This is also invalid because variable should not have the space. And also one of the other rule, variables can have underscore, but it should not start with underscore. Okay, so maybe just to avoid confusion, closing. So now here, starting with underscore and execute, error, right? This is invalid. Invalid. But which is valid? Integer, number, underscore, no. Which is valid, right? If you execute, you don't see any error, right? So it is valid. So it's like that. Okay, so now that is one of the point. And also variable name should not be the keyword. Variables can have the other special characters are not supported, right? Except underscore. Other special characters are not supported. So that is one of the rule. Anyway, dollar something if you give it won't work. So one of the other point, variable name should not be the keyword. If you see, we have boolean, right? Boolean is a keyword. Right? Null is a keyword, right? Let's say, let me give us null. So all those things we cannot use, right? Unexpected token null, which is invalid. Variable name should not be the keyword. Okay, so these are the rules we should know for sure. Okay, so maybe anyway, so with some experience, easily we don't do these kind of things. Okay, so that's about to understand about the memory statement, how we can define the memory by using the data type. So what are the valid names we need to give for the variables? And also never give variables as A, B, C, X, Y, Z, right? In some situations we give, but in general, So let's say you want to store amount, right? Some of the currency value amount. If you give like this, no one can understand it. At least if you give like this, people can understand. Okay, some amount, something they are going to store. Okay, so always as a experienced developer, so make sure to give the proper meaningful name for the variables. So that's one of the standard. Okay, so that's about that. So now, so far, whatever the variables we have defined and discussed, those we call as primitive data types and primitive, right, variables, whatever. So primitive data type means call by value, meaning so whatever the memory system allocates, like when I say integer is, system allocates some bytes of memory directly in that memory, whatever system holds, into that we assign this value and it will store. Yeah, that is the call by value. But when we deal with the non-primitive data types, really these types won't store the real data, whatever we assign. Data will be somewhere, only the location where the data present in the database, that reference, the location of that data, these variables will hold. So that's why we call these variables as call by reference. Call by reference. Okay. So data will be somewhere in database where that is that address of that memory it will hold. Okay, so these types we call as non-primitive types. What are the non-primitive types available? So if you already you know about the standard objects and also the custom objects, right? Standard or custom objects are nothing but the database tables, right? Standard objects, custom objects, all these are the examples for the non-primitive types. Okay, so what are the some of the standard objects? We know account, contact, opportunity. All those are the standard objects by default provided by the Salesforce, right? Database tables. So let's say account is one of the standard object. Contact is one of the standard object. So let's say now data type account, which is a non-primitive data type, space, name of the memory, right? Name of the variable. I'm giving right like this. So now the thing is, for all these non-primitive types, directly assigning the value is not possible. Okay, we cannot assign the value directly like a primitive type. For all these non-primitive types, instead of storing the value directly, we store the reference, the memory location where it is available. Okay, so to allocate a new memory location, okay, so what we do, we use new. New is one of the operator. It will allocate the memory to hold the information. So for all the non-primitive types, we have to give new operator and also right side to allocate the memory. So whatever the object name, same new we give. So now due to this, what it will do? So actually, right, if you know, right, standard object is a database table. So now the meaning of this statement is we are going to store one row in the account table. Let's say already account is having 10 rows. The meaning of this statement is we are introducing one more row. Right now, this will create one empty row and ready to fill the data. Right. So this, what it will do, it will return the reference. Right. So instead of directly holding the data, this returns the reference where the data is present in the database. Only that will be holded into this. Okay, so based on that reference, we identify the data, what we allocated here. Okay, now simply for now, maybe, so I don't bother about if you did not understand about this, right? We are in very starting stage. Just since I'm explaining about data types, just I'm trying to explain. Okay, just only one blind thing how you can understand the primitive types, whatever we define, whatever the memory allocated by system, into that direct data can be assigned, right? I can assign like this. It's possible. But when you define the non-primitive type, I cannot assign something like that, right? It won't accept. Always we have to provide the reference, the location of the data where it is present. If really in the database the data is not there, we allocate memory and this will return the reference where the data is present. Okay, so that's the difference. So slowly going forward, we'll understand more about that. Okay, in the same way, custom object, already we created some of the custom objects. One of the example, let's say course underscore C, right? One of the custom object. If you want to introduce one row into the course table, we create like this. This is like one empty row. How to fill the data? Going forward, we'll discuss. Okay. Going forward, clearly I'll explain how really we deal with them. Okay. Just here, just to get to know what are the non-primitive types available. So one more type, S object is one of the type. So this S object is a generic type, right? Generic to hold either standard object or custom object information. This S object is a generic type. This S object will hold either the standard object information or the custom object information. Okay, so that's what it will do. So just to understand that, and many people, one of the common question, if you see this object, I told that it is generic type, which can accept any type of data, any type of boolean, any type it can accept. Right? Even non-primitive type also you can accept if needed. But this as object, this is not that much generic, right? This as object can hold only the standard object or custom object type of information, not any other type. Let's say I want to store number, it's not possible. I want to store a text, not possible. Either standard or custom object information in a generic way. Let's say I don't know which data I need to insert. I don't know, maybe based on runtime, based on user selection, we decide either it should be account or contact or opportunity or one of the custom object. So in those situations, we use this as object. Okay, so it will be like this. Say as object, give some name. Let's say I'm giving this name. To this, if you want to assign account, you can assign. If you want to assign contact, you can assign like that. Okay, so these are the non-primitive types. And also one more type going forward, we create Apex classes. Okay, for now, we don't know about what is class and all those things. Going forward, once we start with the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming concepts, we deal with this Apex class. That also we can utilize as a data type. Okay? We can utilize as a non-primitive data type. So when we create that class, that time again I will come back and explain how exactly it will work. Okay. So now here, this is the first type. Just understand data types and how we define one of the simple memory statement. So all these are the variables. So now let's understand about other types. So far, if you have any questions, you can ask. Any questions on understanding, especially if you are from the non-programming background. Okay. So now the next type, arithmetic and logical statements. So the purpose of writing a program is we give some data and some calculations should happen, right? That's the main thing what we do in the program. For that, so what are the different operators we have? I'm trying to explain. The first one, assignment operator, right? Assignment operator, it will assign the right hand side value to the left hand side value, right? So let's say I'm defining integer is equal to, right? So when I say like this, what it will do, it is assigning 30 value, which is right side, into is, which is left side, right? So like that. Okay, maybe. So let's say I'm defining one more variable. Maybe we can also assign later, right? Here we are defining memory. If you want, we can assign later. I can assign like this, right? So this value is assigned to that. So if I cannot do like this, right? Into memory we can keep assign data. So like this we never do. Okay. And also what is possible. So let's say the friend days is also same as the is. We assign like this. Okay. So that is possible. Okay. So maybe so let me show you. Right? Go here. So here we have two variables. In one of the variable default value 30. After that 30 value I'm assigning to. So now let's say I'm changing this age to 31. Okay. Now you know how to print, right? Just now already we discussed. So in the log, if you want to print system.debug, so I'm printing the age and also I'm printing the 10 days, both, right? So what do you think is the age? Initially 30, but later we replace with 31. Here 31. Friend is, right? So it is primitive type means what will happen? Once it assigns that value, even though after we modify that, still the value of this, right? Since this value is changed, it won't apply that change to this. Still, you will see the value of this friend days as 30. So let's see. Here we need to see 31. Here we need to see 30. So execute. Right. So same thing. If you deal with the non-primitive type, you will see the different results. That we will decide later. That we see later. Okay. So this is one of the example to understand about the assignment operator. Now let's take one more example. The arithmetic operators. Right? How we add, subtract, multiply, divide. So understand about those types, arithmetic operators. Okay. So we have different types. For that here, to perform the addition, we use plus. To perform subtraction, we use hyphen. Right? To perform division, we use slash. To perform multiplication, we use a star. Okay. So before we use all these things, again, under this, based on the statements what we write, we also classify these things as unary operator. Okay, I'll explain what is that unary operator. We have binary operator. We have ternary operator. These are the different types of operators. So unary operator means on day to day when you see some programs, we see like this I plus plus, right? So the meaning of this one is when you say I plus plus, The meaning is I value will be incremented by 1. So maybe assume that integer I equal to 0. I value is 0. And the I plus plus, when this statement is executed, what will happen? Internally, this is what will happen. I value is 0, 0 plus 1, 1. I becomes 1. Again, one more time, if this is executed, again, I value at present 1, 1 plus 1, I get 2. Keep on, every time it will increment by 1. So here we are using one value, one operator. So this we call as unary operator. Okay, so in the same way, I minus minus. Okay, so maybe to understand, let's say integer I. So in general, when we deal with the loops and all, as a standard, we use I, J, K like that. Okay, so here when we use I, when you deal with the loopings and all, that is fine. Okay, so here let's say I'm giving I value as 0 by default, right? I'm just keeping that and print it. Right? Maybe before executing the statement, what is the value? System.debug, print it and see. So after I plus plus, what is the value? Print it and see and understand. So in the starting phase, I recommend you to execute like this and understand how it is behaving. Even if you want to test a few other things, if you think that what will happen if I do like that, give all those things and try to execute and understand how it is behaving. Okay. Now if you see in the background, here this is giving 0. Right, the fourth statement it is giving 1 because here it is incremented by 1. In the same way, right, we can also decrement. Right? This will decrement. A value will be decremented by 1. Again, here we should see 0. Right? Maybe if you want to use this one 2 times, 2 times. Now here I value will be 2 and decrementing, then high value will become 1. Right? Execute and see. And if you see here in background, this one 0. After that 2 times it is incremented, value is 2. 1 time it is decremented and the value is 1. It is working fine. Right? So that is about that. Okay. So just understand that. Now, so one of the next type, binary operator. Maybe here, let me do it and show you. So let's say here for our demo integer. So let's say I have number 1. So I have 10. So let's say number 2. I have 50. Number 3. Like this. Okay. So now let's say to store the result, we have a variable result. Here result is equal to, I'm giving number 1 multiplied by number 2 minus number 3. What is the result? So when you give like this, okay, there is a operator precedence. Again, we need to look into documentation and understand. As per the precedence, first it will do the multiplication or it will do the subtraction. First it will subtract and multiply, or it will multiply and after that it will subtract. Based on that, the results will change, right? So if you want to exactly know what is the result of this, we have to refer the documentation and understand system give priority for star or minus, all those things. So mostly to avoid that, right? So people don't want to remember. Even I also don't want to. So keep my memory to remember that. So what we do, if you do like this, it is very sure that this will be calculated separately. and after that the result of this one will be subtracted to this one, to this. Okay, let's say I want this to become, later multiply, we give like this. Okay, so now, so even though we have many operators, many values, internally how system execute, system do the calculation this one separately. Whatever the result it gives, finally the result will be multiplied with number one. That's what will happen. Okay, so just understand about that. Now let's see the result of this. System dot debug number one and execute. Click on debug only. Now debug 10. Right? Now in the result, so you are seeing the value as 10. Okay. Sorry, I need to print the result, right? So let's print the result and see. I think it should be minus 750 or something, right? 7,500. So 50 minus 800 minus 750 multiplied by 10 minus 7,500. So like that. So even though we have the big expressions, even the bigger expressions, each time the internally system calculate two values with one operator. This is an example of the binary operator. We call as binary operator. And also we have the ternary operator. Okay. So ternary operator. So how this will work? We give a condition. If the condition is satisfied, so what is the value it is returning? And if the condition is not satisfied, what it is going to return. So to do that, we use ternary operator. Maybe let me show the syntax. Condition question mark. If the condition is satisfied, what you want to do? Right? Some expression, whatever you want to do, or some statement, whatever you want to keep. Right? So maybe it's like a true expression. When it is true, what is the expression you want to keep? When it is false, so what exactly you want to write here? So that's the syntax. Okay, maybe for you to show here, I'm checking if the number one is greater than number two. Right? If number one 10 greater than number two 50, if it is true, so what you want? So whatever the bigger number is there, that one, right? Number one, I want to assign to result. Else column. So what exactly you want? So let's say number two. Okay, now we know that here 10 greater than 50 is not satisfied. Now this will be taken, number to 50. Now the result you will see as 50. Right, we are saying 50, right? So now maybe I'm making it as 100. Now 100 greater than number 2, 50. Yes. Now result will be 100, right? So based on if it is true, what it means this false. So what you want to return or execute, we give here. Okay, this is one of the example for the ternary operator. Okay. So just understand here if you see three values, two operators, right? 1, 2, 3, and two operators. So we call as ternary operator. These are some of the examples. So anyway, now here mostly I'm using plus. You can also use minus, multiplication, star, all those things. Okay, then play with that. Now one of the next type, arithmetic assignment. Arithmetic assignment operator means it's the combination of both arithmetic operator and also the assignment operator. Okay, so for example, maybe here, let's say maybe we have like this, right? Let's say I want two numbers. Now, what I want, number one plus equal to number two. And what is the number one value? In general, maybe if you don't like to do, you can write in a normal way. But the other developers will write like this. When we see existing code, that time we have to understand. At least for that purpose, we should know, right? The meaning of this one is internally the short form for this. Number one is equal to number one plus number two. Instead of writing like this, we write like this. Right? In place of plus, you can also give minus or star or division, all those things. Okay, so since we should understand some existing code when we see, we should know about this kind of expressions. Now the number one value will be 150, right? So when you execute, and then click on debug only. This is the entire log, right? How many bytes it is assigning practically. So we don't like to spend more time and see each and every statement what is happening. Yeah, so whatever we are printing to see that debug only, seeing only this. So 150 is the result, right? It is fine. That's correct. So this is about the arithmetic assignment. Maybe here I'm using this. In place of plus, you can also use star, division, subtraction, all those things. Okay, this is one of the example. The next type is about the relational operators. So relational operators will do comparison. The return type will be either true or false. So when you use this relational operator, what is the outcome? You will see either true or false. Okay. So let's say I want to check two numbers are equal or not. We use double equal to check equality. Single equal to means assignment. Right hand side value will be assigned to left hand side. Double equal to means comparison, right? And not equal to, right? You can also give not equal to like this, right? And also less than, and also less than equal to, and also greater than equal to. So all these are the different relational operators. Okay. So just understand about them. Okay. So now maybe to understand. So let's say here I'm saying number one is equal to number two. Double equal to. Double equal to means comparison returns either true or false. We know that both are not equal, right? If you execute, the result will be false because both are not equal. When you execute and see, you are seeing false, right? So let's say here I am checking for not equal to. Not equal to like this we can give, or like this also you can give. Both will work. Okay. So let's say I want to say number one is greater than number two. Yes. it will return true, right? So maybe just randomly I gave a few things. Let's see. So this one is anyway we know false. This one both are not equal, correct, right? It will return true. Number one is greater than number two. Yes, right? That's the result we have to see. Execute, and whatever we are printing to see that, click on debug only. Here you can see, right? False, true, true, or see, however we are expecting. So these are the relational operators to keep either true or false. So now let's say there are many conditions. So I want to check both are not equal and number one should be greater than number two. Both conditions should be satisfied. If any one of the condition is false, the final result should be false. But if you want to combine multiple conditions like this, to combine, we use logical operators. Okay. Now let's see logical operators. Logical operators. Here I'll say or and not. So all these are the different logical operators. Okay, so here or means technically in Apex code directly we cannot use or. Or how we represent like this, two pipe symbols. Right? Shift and below to delete you will see a key. Right? And to represent end in Apex we use two end symbols. Not to represent not in Apex we use like this. Okay. So by using this, we can finally retrieve by combining multiple conditions. We can get either true or false. And means that on day to day when you say right, when you say two things and say both should be satisfied, right, then only the result will be true. Okay, so if any one is okay, if any one is satisfied, then so that time we go with R like that. So maybe let me take one example. So here I'm saying I'm just removing this. Number one should not be equal to number two, and number one should be greater than number two. Right? So the result, what will happen when you combine these two conditions and both are satisfied, then only the finally it will be true. Now this will be true. Yes, we will see the result as true. Let's say one is false and the other one is true. Right? So let's say this is true. That here in this situation, we know that first condition is true, second condition is true, finally the result is true. So here I'm giving like this. I know that the first condition is false, right? False plus second condition is true. Number 100 greater than 50, yes. Finally, what is the result? Since we are separating with the end, both should be satisfied. One of the condition is not satisfied, the result is false. Right? In the same way, you can play with the different conditions. So let's say this is satisfied, this is not satisfied. We know that both are not same true. But n100 less than 50 false. Finally, the result is false. Right? So let's say both are not satisfied. We know that both are same less than 2 false. Both are false. The final result is false. right? Like that. So same thing, maybe to differentiate. Here I am keeping one system.debug, system.debug string, right? If you want to give a string value, we use single quote. So this is for our, right, for our how it is behaving. So maybe the debug for us to identify easily. This is for end, right? Execute and see. So now here, I think we did not check. True, true. Both are true, true. False, true. Right? R means any one is true. The final result will be true, right? So here I'm going to use R. If any one is true, finally true. If everything is false, then only it is false, right? So here this should be true. This should be true. In the results, we have to see this. Then let's see. Execute. Now, if you see right in the log, however, here we are expecting true, false, 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 true, true, true. Again, one more thing, not means reverse, right? So let's say this one I'm taking as an example, right? So this is for maybe not. Here it is supposed to return true, right? But I want reverse, not. This entire thing I'm keeping in a bracket and I'll say not, right? Not means reverse. Since it is true, it will result as false, right? That's the meaning of that. Again, execute and see. And if we see false, right? So this is the example to understand about the logical operator. So any questions on this? Anyone? So far, any questions? Okay. So now based on this, right, based on this relational operators and based on the logical operators, where exactly we use these things? In the conditional statements. We have conditional statements. So when you write the program, let's say when you write 100 lines of the code, it's not that every time all the 100 lines should be executed, right? Based on some conditions. Let's say 10 lines should be executed only if a specific condition meets. Right? Some other 20 lines should be executed if the condition fails. So we'll be having such kind of scenarios to control in our program when you write which statement should execute, which statement should not execute. We use these conditional statements. In these conditional statements, we use these logical operators and also the relational operators. Okay. So here in Apex, we have if conditions and also we have switch when. We have two options to conditionally control. So practically with if, we can do everything. Really, you don't need to know about switch and when. Then later, once we get more confidence on the development, you can do research on that. For now, I don't want to keep more burden on explaining all possible things. To do our day-to-day work, what we should know, right? I'm going to touch and discuss. Okay. So conditional statement, if conditional statement. But in this, there are different flavors. Okay. So one is simple if, the other one if else, other one else if series, nested if, right? So I'll explain how these things will work. Okay. Since maybe even though I start, I cannot complete. We'll see these things tomorrow, right? How exactly we deal with these things. And also later we deal with the looping statements. Looping in the sense, same statement I want to execute 100 times, 1000 times, right? So if you want to repeatedly execute the set of statements, that time we go with the looping statements. So mainly we have while loop, do while loop, for loop. In for loop we have two flavors: index based for loop, for each loop. Okay, so we'll discuss these things tomorrow before ending today. So for any questions, anyone? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hello? Yeah.
Sir, in ternary operator, we created that integer number 1, number 2, number 3, and comma result. These four are called variables, sir. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and result.
So this part is ternary operator. The result
Yeah,
we are
the above
assigning
line.
to
The above line, what we have created. Number 1 equal to 100, number 2 equal to 50, number 3 equal to 800, comma the result.
these are the
The number
variables.
1, okay, the result is also variable there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Result we are
Okay, sir.
allocating memory to hold result, right? So all
Okay.
these are the variables. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sir.
We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.